I'm Deb Brinkman, President of the League of Women Voters of St. Louis Park. Good evening, and on behalf of the League, I'd like to welcome you to the St. Louis Park Mayor and City Council Candidate Forum. We thank the candidates and the audience for attending tonight's forum and for our internet audience who is also viewing. The League of Women Voters does not support or oppose a political party or candidate for office. The League of Women Voters St. Louis Park has a long-standing history in our community of providing unbiased candidate and issue information that's widely used by Minnesota voters, regardless of their political beliefs. Sponsorship of this forum is a public service, providing you with an opportunity to hear the candidates discuss important issues face to face. The views expressed here tonight are those of the candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters. Sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement by the League of any particular candidate. The general election is November 7. Early voting opens September 22nd. We encourage you to exercise your option to vote using a preference ballot, selecting your first choice, second choice, and third choice. There's never enough time to answer and cover all the issues. If you feel that your question was not addressed, please contact the candidate directly after the forum. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Jackie Wells, from the League of Women Voters Golden Valley. She's a member of the League of Women Voters and a trained moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Good evening, everybody. I'm very happy to be here with you. We will start the candidate forum with the opening statements. Each candidate will be given up to 2 minutes for their opening statement and 1 minute for their closing statement. Opening statements will be in order of office in an alphabetical order, beginning with the candidates for mayor, then the candidate for at-large A city council, and followed by the candidates for at-large B city council. The closing statements will be in reverse order. The order of answering audience questions will be rotated, and candidates will have up to 1.5 minutes for those questions. Our timekeeper, Elsie Nicely, is in the front row, and she will have a 30-second and a 15-second sign for our candidates. And if she holds up a stop sign, candidates, please finish your sentence, and we'll proceed to the next candidate or question. After the opening statements, I'll be asking the candidates questions selected from those submitted by the audience here at City Hall, and also those who sent questions into the LWV St. Louis Park email and web form. Now I will introduce the candidates. The candidates for St. Louis Park Mayor are Dale Anderson and Nadia Mohammed. Yolanda Ferris is running for City Council at-large A and is unopposed. The candidates for City Council at-large B are Paul Bodwin, Moshe Goldberger, and J.W. Sterrett. So we will begin with the opening statements, and we will begin with Dale Anderson, please. Oh, sorry. We have to get our timer. My apologies. And we're doing 2 minutes for the opening statements. Okay, so Dale Anderson, you may now start with your opening statement, please.
Thank you. I'm Dale Anderson. I want to thank our moderator and the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event. I am the son of an immigrant. I grew up in St. Louis Park and graduated from St. Louis Park High School. I moved back to my childhood home 23 years ago after my father passed away. I was a banker for 30 years, making loans to consumers, to builders, and to developers. In other words, I know about using money wisely. My campaign for mayor has been a journey about money, about the money you and I pay that in taxes that keeps rising every year. I want to spend public money for needs like fire and police services and for infrastructure, but reduce spending for high-priced wants. Needs versus wants. Many voters told me that they're unhappy with all the massive housing projects going up in our city funded by tax increment financing. Repeat, tax increment financing, or TIF projects. I think that our city leadership has given away too much in TIF projects to produce affordable housing. Their desperation for affordability has resulted in bad deals. They have mortgaged our future, and the economic realities will hit home. I am your taxpayer-friendly candidate for mayor, and St. Louis Park needs a mayor like me. Thank you.
Thank you. Nadia Mohammed, please.
Do I wait for a signal?
Just a minute. Yeah, we're
Okay,
waiting for the
okay,
timer. Sorry.
okay.
Again,
I love the
apologize.
quietness. It never gets this quiet, y'all. Okay. First and foremost, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this together and for all of you coming. For those who don't know me, my name is Nadia Mohammed, and I am running for mayor of St. Louis Park. I am currently serving my 4th year as a council member at the at-large seat, which means I represent the entire city of St. Louis Park. I am an 18-year resident and an SLP grad, so go Orioles. Like many people in this community, I am an immigrant, and my parents' choice to move to St. Louis Park wasn't a random one. They came here for the vibrant community, for the quality of education, and most of all, at the time, for the city programs that got us up on our feet. I am a benefactor. I'm also a benefactor of programs such as STEP and Perspectives, and I say this proudly all the time, and I wear it like a badge of honor, that I am a product of St. Louis Park. And I sit here with the belief that to whom much is given, much is required. And that is the way I approach my duty as an elected official. And I'll tell you this, nothing, and I mean nothing, prepares you for a global pandemic happening 4 months into your term. And y'all remember, there was no playbook. But despite that, St. Louis Park still continued to be a leader in the metro. And I'm proud to sit on this very dais and lead a lot of conversations around mass distribution, and even pushed our governor as well as state agencies to authorize St. Louis Park firefighters to administer vaccines to our neighbors. I am confident that with my experience and my time as Mayor Pro Tem, that we will build on the success of the past 4 years and advocate and continue to advocate for an inclusive St. Louis Park that reflects all of us, that works for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yolanda Harris.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yolanda Ferris. I have been a resident of St. Louis Park for 10 years. I came here for a new way of life, for a better life. I was born and raised in Chicago, and I moved to St. Louis Park, and it has been the best move I've ever made. I came here and I got connected to the city. I got connected to our mayor, to our council members, to the police department, to the fire department. And I work for an agency named Perspective, supportive housing here in St. Louis Park. And we work with women and children who are dealing with addiction and mental health issues. So I want to connect all communities with the city. We have all different people living here. I want to work for affordable housing for everybody. I am in favor of the TIF program because it has brought affordable housing to people that cannot afford to live in St. Louis Park. St. Louis Park is a beautiful place. I want to bring unity. We all get to know each other, love each other, and support each other. I'm very new to the council. I was appointed in February, and it has been the best experience of my life. The council has been so transparent. The city has been so transparent. They have been really supportive to me. There is nothing, no hidden agendas. Everybody is really supportive. So I want to bring unity to the community. Thanks.
Thank you. Paul Bodwin?
Well, thank you, League of Women Voters, for having us here, and thank you all for showing up. It's great to see such a full house. My name is Paul Bodwin, and I am married. I have 3 adult children, all 3 of whom are a product of St. Louis Park Public Schools. I'm a United Methodist pastor, currently on leave. I was serving Aldersgate United Methodist Church here in the park until July. I did that for 8 years until July of this year. Since then, I've been putting my energies toward running for city council, and I've also taken up substitute teaching mostly at St. Louis Park High School over the last few weeks, which has been really great and a lot of fun. I've also been on the Human Rights Commission here in St. Louis Park for since 2020 I was appointed. I've been the chair for a little over a year there, and I've served on the St. Louis Park Family Services Collaborative Board since 2007. And then when I do find some time, one of my favorite things to do for this city is I also do some sports broadcasting for ParkTV for football and basketball primarily. I moved here 11 years ago with my family. We all immediately fell in love with it. It was the first place we ever lived that felt like home. And so I'm running because of just how much I love this city, and I believe that it should be opened up to all. And unfortunately, I think with rising housing prices, some of our lower and middle income people are getting squeezed out of the opportunity to live in such a wonderful city as this. The other reason I'm running and feel I'm a good candidate is being a pastor teaches you about collaborative leadership, working as a team. It has taught me how to listen to diverse voices, even ones I don't agree with, and make sure that those voices are brought to the table. That's something I've really learned to have to do as a pastor over the last 25 years. And I love this city, the entire city, and therefore that's why I'm suitable, I think, for an at-large seat. And so as we head into the crunch time of this election, I just hope you'll get to learn more about me and that you'll make me your first choice vote on or before November 7th.
Thank you. Moshe Goldberger, please.
It's on. Okay, thanks. Hi, my name is Moshe Goldberger. First of all, I'd like to thank the hosts of this event, all of you for coming out tonight. I grew up here in St. Louis Park. I'm almost 30 years old, so moved here when I was 1, so it's most of my life. And I'm running for the at-large B seat. My basic philosophy is, I think, pretty simple. I'm for limited government. I think at the local level, government should be limited, should be focused on providing the residents with the core services that we all use, we all need. Things like public safety. We need to have safe communities. That's a basic. I think that's a basic job, basic role for government at the local level. Beyond that, public works, infrastructure, the basic, all the things that we need to live. All those things, that's certainly the job of local government. Parks and Rec would be included in that. Things like plowing the streets, like filling potholes, like making sure there aren't any issues with the water, things we take for granted, things we don't think about. That's what the government's here for at a local level. That's my philosophy. And I think we should ask from the taxpayer only what is required, what's necessary to pay for those things. I think we have to respect the taxpayer, have to respect, I'm wrapping it up, respect them and only ask for what it takes, what it costs us as a city to provide those services. Thank you very much.
Thank you. J.W. Sterrett.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. I'm J.W. Sterrett. Great to meet most of you, probably for the first time. For those of you who know me, I'm sorry if I've ever bothered you. But I've lived in St. Louis Park now for over 10 years. Prior to that, I lived in Los Angeles. I moved out there after college. I went to the University of South Dakota. And it was out there that I worked in the entertainment industry and still do to this day. It's an exciting industry, but it has its ups and downs and is always very interesting. So if you'd like to catch me in the hallway, feel free. But at the end of the day, moving here was a choice. I wanted to find a place where I knew that my values, my inspirations would meet, and I found that here in St. Louis Park. And being engaged and active with our community, with our local government, has been key for me in wanting to take this chance and jump now into a race against these two gentlemen. And I think that we have an amazing opportunity, and it is to groups like the League of Women Voters for putting together events like this to bring out. We see that there's a great attendance here, and that's something about St. Louis Park that I love. People are engaged, they're excited, and they want to be a part of it. I would say that as we go through questions, you might see that how I try to differentiate myself from my competitors, if we could call it that. But at the end of the day, I'm really excited about seeing ranked choice voting used across us three. I think that that's an exciting time for our city. We are going into a new frontier on that. But at the end of the day, we'll kind of I'll sit kind of in between these two, maybe you'll find. It'll be things like, I would like to see more responsiveness to the voters. I would like to see more independence from different council members on certain issues. But at the same point, I see that the goals that we have as a city, I feel connected to as well. And I want to be more than just an ally. I want to be more than an advocate. I want to be an activist. And I want to make change that we can measure and that we can see all the way through to the end and know that we made a difference. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So now we're going to move on to questions from the audience here. And audience, if you have questions on cards, please wave them in the air and somebody will pick them up for you. So anyway, questions from the audience here and questions submitted by St. Louis Park residents on the League's email. And you will all have up to 1.5 minutes to answer these questions. And candidates, if you ever need me to repeat a question, just let me know. For our first question, J.W. Sterrett will be the first responder. And the topic is family housing. Many families struggle to find homes fitting their growing families' needs, considering that many of the city's homes are fairly small and remodeling is expensive. What proposals, if any, would you suggest for helping homeowners stay in St. Louis Park? And as I said, J.W. Sterrett's the first one.
Sure. For staying in St. Louis Park, that is a concern. We're seeing rising taxes, we're seeing rising home assessments, which also lead to higher, taxable amounts. I think my property taxes have doubled in the 10 years that I have lived in St. Louis Park. That's a lot. In some ways, I am worried that we're going to tax out our senior citizens, tax out those from who have lower incomes. And I think that we need to take aggressive programs to make sure that there are all different types of affordable housing in St. Louis Park. The initiatives that I've seen with high-density housing are necessary. They've helped us achieve, we're almost at our goal that the Met Council put for us for 2030. But those different ranges of houses, from smaller apartment buildings to duplexes to ADUs, I would like to see us strengthen and provide programs that are reasonable, that fit with our goals, and that we can be able to say we see success from it, and we can see it sooner rather than 20, 25 years down the road.
Thank you. Let's see, next is Paul Bodwin.
Is it all right? Could you read the question again? I just want to make
Sure.
sure I answer the question.
Had to see where I put it. Many families struggle to find homes that fit their growing family's needs, considering that many of the city's homes are fairly small and remodeling is expensive. What proposals, if any, would you suggest for helping homeowners stay in St. Louis Park?
Yeah, so this is a tricky thing. I have a family with had three teenagers in it for a while, and we do have small, tight homes, and it is very, very prohibitively expensive to expand. I think we need to continue some of the incentive programs that we've had for expanding upwards a little bit and expanding garages and things like that. I need to take a deeper look into exactly the specificities of what some of those incentive programs might be and how they would work and how they're funded. But we need to be open and creative in trying to find ways for families to live in these small homes, which, by the way, it's amazing to me that some of our baby boomer families had like 6 kids in these small homes, and we're struggling with 3. So I would want to look at more and more creative ways to help people fit better into their homes and the property lots that they're on. I do think, though, one of the benefits of some of this is it gets us outside more, it gets us to know our neighbors more, and that's always a good thing and creates community and makes for a stronger St. Louis Park. Insofar as the affordable element around affordable housing, I'm assuming a question around that's going to come later, but I am all for trying to find ways to diversify our affordable housing, and in particular, finding ways to get people into home ownership.
Thank you. Moshe Goldberger, please.
Thank you. Can you repeat the question also?
Sure. Many families struggle to find homes that fit their growing families' needs, considering that many of the city's homes are fairly small and remodeling is expensive. What proposals, if any, would you suggest for helping homeowners stay in St. Louis Park?
Well, first of all, lowering taxes, I agree with what JW said about that. I think that's a big part of it. Taxes seem to keep going up in the city, property taxes. I want to see them go down. Beyond that, I think direct involvement on the city's part in that area is outside the scope of local government responsibility, jurisdiction, you might say. I think that sort of thing should be left to the forces of the free market to determine the reality in St. Louis Park.
Thank you. Dale Anderson, please.
Thank you. Affordable housing is a serious problem in St. Louis Park, but we're not alone. Affordable housing is a problem in all kinds of areas in the United States. The problem can't be solved. We don't have the tools as a city to solve the nature of the affordable problem right now, because we have been overwhelmed by extremely wealthy investors who have been invading our communities with cash offerings substantially over the asking prices, and buying up the housing stock and putting the supply out of balance with demand. Until we realize that, we can't really fix this. We have a couple of tools we could attempt, and that is changing our zoning and changing our building codes. But aside from that, I think the problem is outside of our ability, and we may just simply have to. And housing is always cyclical, but we will be able. This will not always be the case. Times will change, and housing will drop. House prices will drop.
Thank you. Yolanda Ferris, please.
So, providing programs. Could you repeat the question really fast?
Sure.
I definitely want to make sure.
Many growing families struggle to find homes fitting their growing families' needs, considering that many of the city's homes are fairly small and remodeling is expensive. What proposals, if any, do you suggest for helping homeowners stay in St. Louis Park?
So I wouldn't feel comfortable suggesting any policies. I think it would be best to ask people, because everybody's situation is different. Get out and ask the constituents, what do you need? What is keeping you from doing the things that you need to make your house larger or fix your house the way that you need? I don't think it's fair to make a policy and not affect everybody, because everybody's situation is different. So I think that's why it's important that the constituents connect with the council members, the mayors, and the city staff to share their needs.
Thank you. And Nadia Mohammed.
Thank you. That's a really good. Oh, okay. See, what you warned us actually happened, and you would think I got used to it by now. All right, so that's a really good question. Thank you for asking. So housing is my passion, and honestly, ask anybody on the council. I never shut up about it. That was a joke, y'all. So It's actually what drove me to public service, increasing home ownership here in St. Louis Park, and more so getting bigger homes here in St. Louis Park. Both whenever we're talking about rental options and home ownership. And I know that as I pushed on the council to create more grants and loans that allows people to expand on their homes in a way that is feasible for them, right? But I also want to address the real disparity that happens within home ownership. Here in our own city of St. Louis Park, only 8% of Black families own their home. Right? And I say that as a renter as well, whereas 78%, I believe, don't exact quote me on that, but 78% of white Americans or who live in St. Louis Park own their home. So that's something that also I'm willing to, and I'm wanting to explore, and I know that on the council we already have with our first generation home buyers program that gives forgivable loans and our down payment programs and things like that. So that is something that I want to emphasize and make sure that people are able to own and purchase their homes, because it is the single greatest pathway to wealth creation.
Thank you. And you will get our next question. You'll be the first one for the next question. And the topic is policing. According to the St. Louis Park Police Department, there's been an increase in crime throughout the city. If you are elected, what would you suggest to help the city decrease crime rates?
So that's a really good question. That's another one of my great priorities. I'll start with a little bit of a short story. One of the first times I had an interaction with the city staff was with police officers. And this incident did have a happy ending where somebody called the police on my brother, who is autistic and epileptic. And it required a lot of training on the end of the police officer to navigate that situation. So to me, it is something that I take with great pride that our police officers always have the community in mind, and that they are all about community policing. And in regards to the crimes, I think it's about providing the police officers with the resources and trainings that they need to serve us. And again, with community in mind, with trauma-informed practice in mind, with recognizing who is it that you're serving, who is it that lives in our community. So that's that. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. And the next person to respond is Dale Anderson, please.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Of course. According to the St. Louis Park Police Department, there's been an increase in crime throughout the city. If you were elected, what would you suggest to help the city decrease crime rates?
I don't think cities can do anything to decrease the crime rate. I think what cities can do is make sure they have a well-funded police force and give policemen give policemen the tools to manage their problems. They come in pretty fast. They come in at unknown times, and they have to respond when the crimes occur as best they can. We need a professional police force. We need them to be well-trained. We need them to be well-compensated. They need to have times off, and they need to have a good health care and good retirement benefits. They are the responders to the crimes, not the creators of the crimes. If we want to deal with I don't know really how to address the creation of crimes, especially with gun violence. Gun violence makes everything so ugly. Thank you.
Thank you. J.W. Starrett, please.
Thank you. I would say yes, I am worried about crime and how it's been increasing in St. Louis Park. My neighborhood is Elmwood, where I currently live. We've had 2 shootings in less than 6 months. In our neighborhood, we've also had several attempted armed robberies in our neighborhood. It's it's always concerning when that happens. I think as more and more people start to hear about that, and I know my neighborhood isn't the only neighborhood that experiences this. During COVID, we experienced car thefts, catalytic converter thefts. In general, we go through almost weekly, people trying to get into people's cars. When it comes down to community is about trust. And for me, I do think that the police force is important. I was blown away when I saw the numbers. We were just presented last week by City Hall to the candidates, a presentation, and there was over 46,000 calls that the police department makes. That's 5 an hour, and that's 24 hours a day, 365. That's pretty impressive, and for the size of staff that they have. So I'm very grateful to them, and I think there's anything that we can do to help them, I would want to support that. But at the same point, I want to make sure that we find ways to address either mental health, behavioral, traumatic things that might be occurring so that our police force is trained appropriately to go in and assess those or have other divisions that can assist them with that.
Thank you. Yolanda Ferris, please.
So my neighborhood right now, we are dealing with car thefts. People are stealing cars and bringing them to our apartment complex and leaving them there. I do know, because I work closely with the police department, that they are definitely understaffed. We need to come up with a better plan to help them to be able to get more police officers to work in St. Louis Park. We need to look at their pay. We need to look at their mental health. We need to look at the system that is ran through them to make sure that they are okay and that we can bring more officers into St. Louis Park.
Thank you. Paul Bodwin.
So this question, if you ask me, is really not a policing question as much as it is a crime question. And we have seen incredibly increased crime in our communities and in communities across the nation, really, and it is a problem. And I'll be the first to confess that many my fellow progressives sometimes tend to shove some things under the rug a little bit, and we need to name it when it's happening and start exploring ideas of how we can prevent it. I want to name as somebody who's been on the Human Rights Commission for the last 3 years now. We really do have a tremendous police department here in St. Louis Park. I've been very, very impressed with their work, with their awareness. I know right now they said they are working on some specific training around how to respond to mental health situations. I have actually personally witnessed some really positive mental health response from our police department, so I appreciate that, and I appreciate all their work. They're also willing to be held accountable, and we need to keep holding our police officers accountable to be doing policing well. At the same time, though, more often than not, police don't prevent crimes, they react to them. And many people don't know that we have grant money available to every neighborhood to build community in your neighborhoods. And when you build community, you build trust. And when you build trust, you watch out for one another. And this can also be a great way to prevent crime. So we need to look beyond just policing to find creative ways for all of us as a town to work together to bring that crime rate down.
Thank you. And Moshe Goldberger.
Thank you for the question. I see public safety as our number one responsibility as a city council. That's one of the reasons, one of the fundamental reasons why we exist as a council, as a city government. So let's take a look here at some of the statistics. This is available on the city's website. These are from the last 6 years. You probably can't see from that far away, but you may not have to because the trends sort of all move in the same direction. So this is arson by year of the last 6 years, and you can see that moving up from left to right. Here's vandalism, similar trend. And motor vehicle theft, same thing. It's more than triple. In the last 6 years, you have 2017, got 56 reported motor vehicle thefts. 2022, 169. I think a lot of that speaks for itself. So we really have a problem, public safety. I spoke to the police chief. I got to hurry up here. I spoke to the police chief. He says they haven't hired police sergeants in more than 20 years, and no one wants to be a cop because they don't pay enough. And with the environment surrounding police today, it's just very difficult. So we need to give them the resources they need. In terms of preventing, I think we need to send a clear message to wannabe criminals, people that come here with bad intent, that sort of behavior will not be tolerated in St. Louis Park.
Thank you. And you might recognize a pattern because you will be the first one to answer our next question. Do you support any efforts to increase revenue in order to not rely solely on property taxes to fund city services?
No, absolutely not. I think there's more than enough revenue coming in from property taxes. It's not the only source of revenue. I understand there's revenue that comes in from licensing fees, other fees we have, user fees, different services the city offers. I think there's more than enough revenue coming in for the city to provide the basic services. I don't think that's an issue. I'm for lowering taxes, certainly not raising them.
Thank you. Let's see. Oh, Yolanda Ferris, please.
I do agree that we do have enough revenue coming in, but the times are different, things are different, so I'm really not comfortable with saying that I'm not, but maybe we should just figure out another way to bring revenue versus raising the taxes.
Thank you. Dale Anderson, please.
I think we need to, I think we need to tame our expenses elsewhere in order to meet our needs to address crime. Raising taxes is the easy way, but it throws the burden on a certain segment of our population. And by the way, renters should be as concerned about taxes as homeowners because their taxes are built right into their rent. They probably aren't aware of that. We need to tame our expenses where we can. I've advocated cutting down on our wants, satisfying our needs, but not spending so much on our high-priced, high-cost wants. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. J.W. Starrett.
For me, it's a lot of the things that we're talking about tonight, from wants, needs, to the things that we support, the things that we'd like to see. I think we can have both in the sense of we can spend more money, we can also generate more money. But overall, I would like to see that done without too much to the property tax owner. I'd like to see it put more, we're going to talk about TIF, I'm sure, at some point more, and the other forms of financing that are available for the high-density projects. So I'd like to see more onus put on them for that, but that's separate. So in the end of this specific question, I would like to say that, I lean towards not raising taxes.
Towards what?
Not raising taxes.
Thank you. Nadia Mohammed.
Okay. I just had to write down a couple of my thoughts because I think that's a really good question. And I know that taxes are really important. Before I finish, sorry, can you repeat the question one last time? I want to make sure I heard it correctly.
Yep. Do you support any efforts to increase revenue in order to not rely on property taxes to fund city services?
Okay. Well, thank you for asking that question. So we have come to love St. Louis Park there's the reason why we came to St. Louis Park is for the services that is provided here. Our taxes is how we pay for the city function, our taxes is how we pay for the things that happen in the city, right? It's how our city functions. That being said, I know that every time I door knock, I hear often from people about how much they love the city and how they could tweak this and how they, you know what I mean? Only people who love the city are the ones who will be the first one to say, oh yeah, because I love the city, I'm going to criticize it, right? And so as somebody who's served for the past 4 years and who has passed 4 budgets, taxes are something that has come up time and time again. And I will say, proudly so, I will continue to invest in our city. And being mindful that there are citizens with fixed income and and families who are of lower income, right? Making sure that we don't tax anybody out. But again, we have come for this city for the services, and we will stay for the services. And any time that our taxes go up, we make sure that we're bringing it back to the community, right? And that we're relieving the pressure off of that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Paul Bodwin.
Yeah, I'm going to age myself a little bit here. I'm old enough to remember to learn from Walter Mondale not to run a campaign on raising taxes. But all that is to say, nobody wants their taxes raised. And we do need, and with that, I would say, if you can find other revenue, great. It's always great to find other sources of revenue. The parallels between this problem and the problems that I've faced as a pastor around what people bring in via the plate, which is kind of our tax, even though it's not enforced or demanded, versus what the things we want to do as a community, those often have quite a deficit between them. And it becomes very, very difficult to figure out. You are faced with one of two questions, or both questions. What do we cut, or how do we raise more money? So I'm very much in favor of finding creative revenue sources so that we can continue with by not raising taxes as much as possible, so that we can continue the great programs and services that we offer here in St. Louis Park that make it such a great place to live. The greatness that we experience here in this town, we call it Minnesota's sweet spot, doesn't just happen. It happens with everybody pooling together, including our city government, doing what it can to provide any and all services to make this great place to live. So revenue services outside of property taxes, I'm all for finding those.
Thank you. And you, of course, will answer our next question first. Let's see. This is on cannabis sales. What is your suggested approach for regulation of cannabis sales and/or use at the city level?
Oh, that's me.
That is you. Yes, sir.
I'm like, that was a great question. It's an interesting one. It's brand new, right? We're about a month and a half into this thing. And I will say one thing. I think that there should be a lot of similarities in our regulations around cannabis sales. A lot of similarities there that are similar to what we do around alcohol and what we do around tobacco. In our parks, we have a no tobacco rule. I think that should apply to cannabis. As much as I am for the legalization of it, I really am. I'm strongly for it. I also think the age, at which it's legal should be the same. There should be some similar laws around how it's sold and to whom it's sold and when. And outside of that, I'll be brutally honest with you, I haven't thought about the nitty-gritty details, and I would love, this is where, as a city council person, you rely so much on your city staff who give you these thorough researched reports that you read through and try to figure out for yourself what is the best way to do this. But I do know that we need to be careful with it. I'm glad that it's legal in Minnesota now. That's going to literally free a lot of people, and we just need to do our best to find the best regulations around it that keep all of us safe, and especially our children.
Thank you. Moshe Goldberger, please.
I would echo a lot of what Paul said there. I haven't thought about it specifically myself, so I would take some time to think about that if I was elected. Generally, I'm for limited government, limited regulation, so I don't think the city should be very heavily involved in that area. On the other hand, I do know that there are restrictions at parks, places like that, where we don't allow alcohol there, tobacco products. So I would say maybe something similar should apply to cannabis, but I'd have to think about it some more.
Thank you. Nadia Mohammed.
All right, thank you. So this is actually a conversation we've had in the past couple of years in the council around the use of the cannabis and the sale of cannabis here in the city. We've made numerous decisions around how we want it here in our city, right? But this is ultimately an unknown, and we're in murky waters, right? And we're waiting for clarifications from our state representatives and our senators to clarify this for us, to set a pathway for how can we do this in a way that is safe and healthy for our communities. That being said, I think one of the things that I really pushed on for this is, again, the disparity around this is the amount of people that it affected and how the sell of it has time and time again come only to benefit certain communities and not the communities that it has impacted for the longest time. And that is something that I push forward every time that we're talking about cannabis. That obviously, I know that we're waiting for 2024 legislative session to start to get more and more information about this. And I look forward to seeing what they come up with and how we can implement it in our city.
Thank you. Dale Anderson.
I am pleased that cannabis has been decriminalized. I'm not sure how to proceed except to say we need to keep our eyes open and our minds open. We don't need to put people in jail. We need to understand how it is a problem and manage it when we understand that. I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you. J.W. Starrett.
I like a lot of what we're saying. I feel very much in the same way. I'd like to see it treated like alcohol and tobacco in certain ways. But if you want to talk about taxes, that's something I'd be curious about, what a tax on cannabis would be like at a city level, and what type of revenue would it generate. It could be a source. Yeah. So that is something I would be open to. And that's all I really have to say about it.
Thank you. And Yolanda Ferris, please.
Yes, so now it is legal. But I believe that's definitely a way to bring revenue into the city. And I agree with everybody else that it should be treated as the same as alcohol and tobacco. We have to be careful about our youths getting their hands on it, and you know, a lot of people use it for different reasons. Some people for recreation, some for mental health. So that's all I got to say about it.
Thank you very much. And you will get our next question first, and that is, what is your approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion in St. Louis Park? Yolanda Ferris.
Thank you for that question. It's something that I am definitely interested in, working closely with Radius to learn more about it, but I think it's very important that we put a big focus on it. St. Louis Park is growing, and we have all nationalities, all kind of people. It's a nice, big, beautiful rainbow. So I think it's something that's very important, very, very important.
Thank you. J.W. Starrett.
Yes, very, very, very important. And I want to be very clear about this. This isn't something I'm just going to say to make you like me. This is something that I say, and I will repeat that. I don't want to be an ally. I don't want to be an advocate. I want to be an activist when it comes to this. Earlier in my career, I worked, as I mentioned, in Los Angeles. I worked for MTV, which was part of Viacom, a Fortune 100 company, and they were actually one of the most progressive in the way that they treated their employees and the way that they looked at their programming. And to me, that was one of the most inspiring things I did, other than, I'll drop another name drop. When I was in Los Angeles, I volunteered for the Obama campaigns in 2008 and 2012. And being involved in those experiences and being just with a common goal with diverse groups and seeing what it meant, then also being there to see how equity was different than equality and how it was different than the other steps of our paths forward, and knowing that inclusion was necessary. So when we look at our city and we see the changing demographics and we think about our future and that it will change more, and we want to make sure that, as we've been saying all tonight, that we want to make it a welcoming place for everybody, I think it is key that these three things, DEI, are top of mind. But at the same point, I want to make sure that we measure it and we do it in a smart way, and that we aren't just saying it to say it. We should say it, we should believe it, we should be engaged with it, and we should find ways to fight for it constantly.
Thank you. Paul Bodwin.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. What is your approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion in St. Louis Park?
Yeah, this is a really important question. My approach to begin with comes as one who identifies as a cisgender, straight, white Christian man. And with that, I've often said, kind of jokingly, but also very seriously, I'm sort of the poster child for privilege. And the concept of privilege is one that a lot of people get really uncomfortable when you talk about it. And it's deeply connected and embedded in all of these matters of race or diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I think part of my approach is, with all the learning I've done around it, this was a significant part of my seminary training, which a huge part of it was focused around social justice and identity, power, and difference, and how those things work, and not just in the religious realm, but in all realms. We have some work to do to educate people, because there's a lot of people out there that just don't know the nuances and complexities around these matters, which is why I'm thrilled that our city has not just hired a race, equity, and inclusion director, but created a whole department that's working through our entire org chart. I think that's very important. And so I want to make sure that we are really approaching this in a holistic, authentic, and honest way, and really helping people to understand these concepts of power and privilege and how they work. And I'll just throw out really quickly, there's a connection here between this and affordable housing. When you look at the fact that the Twin Cities area has some of the worst racial disparities when it comes to housing and education, we've got work to do here that could impact real lives.
Thank you. Moshe Goldberger.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think what J.W. mentioned about equity versus equality, I think that's a very big issue, and that may have gone over some of your heads. My understanding is that equity means equality of outcome, whereas equality is, to me, equality is equality of opportunity. I think that is what the city needs to be focused on. We have to make sure that the playing field is level, that everyone has the same opportunity, access to pursue what they want to pursue, and to make the most of their abilities and their talents. Equality of outcome, I don't think, is something that the city should be spending money on. I don't believe that is something the city should be doing. We need to be very, very clear about the fact that everybody is welcome. There's no question about it. Everybody is welcome, and everybody is encouraged to make the most of themselves to the best of their ability. But to spend city money on promoting one particular group or another, I don't believe is appropriate.
Thank you. Nadia Mohammed.
Thank you. So this is nothing but good questions, honestly, but ooh, this keeps happening to me. All right. Again, my bad, y'all. So this is another good question, and honestly, y'all already know this is a part-time job. So as part of my day job, I work as a DEI specialist at a state agency. Can't say which one. That was another joke, y'all. Tough crowd. At a state agency, right? And so part of my job is training the workforce to be culturally responsive. And so I take that work with me here every time that I'm here, every time that I'm interacting with staff, to make sure that we are engaging with communities of color and diversity across the spectrum. And that we're not constantly only hearing from the loudest people in the room, and that we are looking for innovative ways to engage with communities and bringing them into our fold, into the decision making. And so that's how I approach it, and that's how I intend to keep approaching. And I will say in a span of something, this is where I think is something we're really proud of. In the span of 4 years, we've gotten 3 women of color out of 7 people to represent us here. And that's amazing. That speaks to the volumes about the work that St. Louis Park is doing. So, which I'm really proud of.
Thank you. Dale Anderson, please.
I once participated in an international Zoom meeting about DEI, and one speaker was in Spain, and he reminded this group that there's really only one race, the human race. And we need to understand that and make changes in our own hearts. We need to understand that the color of one's skin, the shape of one's eyes, the who people worship, who people love, are changes that we need to understand internally. I don't think we can fix them necessarily socially. Demographics are changing, attitudes are changing, and we need to be aware and alert to keeping our minds open and respecting all people, and especially as how they feel or how they seem as it relates to others.
Thank you. And you will be the first to respond to our next question, and that is, please discuss any development or public works projects that you would like to see in St. Louis Park.
Development or public works projects. I think we've taken on projects that have satisfied some people, I brought this up before, satisfied some people's wants that were not really needs. I think we have spent a lot of money, I'm talking about millions of dollars, for things we shouldn't have been spending on. We have a glorious bridge crossing the Burlington Northern Tracks that was expected to cost a few $1 million, and it ended up costing about $12 million. There's something wrong with this. I'm not sure we needed that bridge, at least at this time. That's an awful lot of money to spend. Likewise, the Westwood Nature Center is a glorious building there, but it is an awful lot of money to spend, was an awful lot of money to spend, and I don't think we needed to spend as much as we did. I would like to see our spending on projects better thought out, and keep in mind who's paying for those projects.
Thank you. Nadia Mohammed.
Yeah. So there isn't any development or projects that I'm thinking. Oh, okay. My bad. Okay. So there isn't any projects that I'm thinking about or developments. I will say, you know, what I've learned as a council member is you listen more than you have ideas. And so if there is anything that residents or neighbors feel like there is something missing in our neighborhoods, right, in our city, then I think that's something that they should bring to the council and to staff, and we're always exploring, trying to figure out innovative ideas to meet the needs of our residents, right? But I do know for a fact what we do need is more housing, and because we're in the middle of a housing crisis, and I can't think of anything else to add to in St. Louis Park than housing. So,
Thank you. Yolanda Ferris, please.
Thanks. I agree with Nadia. I think that we need more affordable housing. And I also think we need to think of the younger generation as well. We do have the rec center, and it's nice and it's beautiful, but we need other areas for our children as well. You know, other places for them to attend, because everybody doesn't live that on that end. Everybody does not have transportation or means to get on that end. So I think if I had to, well, I do have to answer this. I would think that we should think of things for our younger generation, you know, for our young ones.
Thank you. Paul Bodwin.
Yeah, you know, the first one that comes to my mind is I want to see us continue in our Connect the Park efforts. I think it's really important, especially since it also ties in to matters of equity and matters of climate change, to make sure that we're connected by bike and foot as much as we can be. One of the development projects I'd like to see that I think may be already in the mix is a really good bike lane going all the way down Louisiana, since it's our only road that goes across just about the entire city, north and south. And it's not very bikeable in some spots right now. And it also has at the end of it the bus park and ride lot that people want to get to. So that's one thing that comes to my mind. I also would like to see some development projects around diversifying our affordable housing a bit, so that it's not all 6-story apartment buildings, but that we're looking at things like row housing and townhouses and other elements like that. And I think we really also need to be out there listening to our community, especially our more marginalized communities, whose needs and wants and desires and dreams and passions often get missed and overlooked. And so we need to be intentional about reaching out and really hearing what the needs around our communities are.
Thank you. Moshe Goldberger, please.
Thank you. I'll just speak to a few issues. There was an effort that's been made to narrow the roads in a lot of the neighborhoods. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that. I'm not for that. I think that's inconveniencing a lot of people, especially in the wintertime when you lose another maybe 1.5 to 2 feet on each side with snow. I think that needs to stop. I've talking to people, I've heard a lot about the lighting in the neighborhoods. So a lot of people are saying that it's very dark in our neighborhoods at nighttime. That's something that I would be interested in looking more into. All the new apartment buildings that are going up, I'm not in favor of those. I think that creates a lot of congestion and traffic. I don't think that serves the interest of the majority of the residents here. And the last one was the public library. This kind of interesting idea, but the public library doesn't open 3 days a week. It doesn't open until 12 o'clock, 12 noon. Now, I understand that's not a city thing, that's run by the county, but I wonder if we could work something out to get that open at 9 o'clock. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful place, wonderful institution, and it should be open 9 o'clock.
Excuse me, thank you. Let's let the candidates speak. Thank you very much. J.W. Sterrett, your turn on this question.
Perfect. Thank you. I would turn the question a little bit to the community and the gathering of our community. I think we're spread out kind of in a way that many of us are cut off by the roads around us, or we live in residential neighborhoods that don't have certain services. So when you think about a first ring suburb becoming more of a metropolitan zone, that with light rail coming, I think the places that we gather is what I would be interested in focusing on. There's been the renewed interest in historic Walker Lake. I think that that's great, but I'd like to see that we bring programming that brings a lot of people together. Throughout my high school, college, professional career, it's been about getting a lot of people together. And it's about creating environments that are fun, safe, and that people want to go to and experience. And I think that those are some of the things that we're missing right now. People are a little lost, so they stay in their own little neighborhoods, or they stay in their own little places, and they don't get out and enjoy the city. I will say in the 10 years I've lived, well, let's go 8 years that I've lived in my house, it's been in the last year or two, as we've come out of COVID, and all the other kids in the neighborhood are together, that we're going to the park every night. And that experience for me is amazing. And that's just a basic fundamental of community. And I want to see more of what we can do to get people together and the projects that are out there. Not public Wi-Fi, I promise. That's a sad joke if anyone picks up on it. And I'm going to take one shot across the bow for some folks here. I'll finish the sentence, which is that the city council just gave millions of dollars to the Sherman Associates for their project on the Beltline. So maybe that should be where we get together and gather.
Thank you. And you are first for our next question. We've received many questions on affordable housing. We've kind of merged them together here. How do you define affordable housing? Does St. Louis Park have sufficient affordable housing? And what changes, if any, would you suggest for housing equity and inclusion? And J.W. Sterrett, you're the first person.
Sure. So to touch back on this specific topic, I do feel like we have a lot of affordable housing that's come onto the market in the last 10 years. There were goals that were set for us by Met Council, and we are nearing those or almost at them with the projects that are currently in development. One of which is where Paul used to be the pastor. And, that was something where neighborhood and engagement with the residents is very key to see what will fit there, what would be best for there. And I do appreciate the conversations that Paul and I had, and for the people who were involved in Paul's process that we had with him. There was an original idea where it was going to be owned 55-plus townhomes, and that didn't go forward based on feedback that they received from City Council. I think that would have been nice. It would have been a home ownership opportunity instead of a, affordable place that's just crammed onto a corner of a lot. And now we have a much bigger project that's going in, but it is 100% affordable. I think that that's an interesting project. We had discussions with them to see about what the right size was, and that's the type of engagement I'm expecting from our city council, is that they hear from the residents, and then they help them find solutions on how those projects could come together and be used there. With that, though, I do, things that we've talked about earlier, ADUs, I think is really an exciting opportunity for our city as we grow. For those who are able to do that, the other types of housing inventory that we need, and I think that the city should look at all programs to provide more home ownership than renting.
Thank you. Moshe Goldberger, please.
Please repeat the question.
Sure. How do you define affordable housing? Does St. Louis Park have sufficient affordable housing? And what changes, if any, do you suggest for housing equity and inclusion?
Thank you. I think those issues are really not something the government should be involved in. I think those are private sector, belong in the private realm. Those issues, I don't support government involvement in that.
Thank you. Paul Bodwin.
He was too fast. Brevity is the soul of wit, Polonius said. How do I define affordable housing? Well, as somebody who has been on the Human Rights Commission and really believes in human rights, I believe housing is a human right. And I don't mean this as a cop-out, I really mean it. To me, affordable housing is when all can afford to have dignified housing. And so do we have that in St. Louis Park? No, we don't have that anywhere really in the world that I know of. It's a dream, it's a hope, it's a goal, and it's something that we need to keep working toward. That said, I think St. Louis Park has made great strides in the last several years. And as JW has mentioned, we're meeting a lot of the goals that were set before us, and other surrounding communities are not. And so we need to keep at it. And as I've said before, I'd really like to see us work on diversifying the type of affordable housing that we have, but also where they are. I don't think they should just be sanctioned to certain neighborhoods. We need affordable housing everywhere. And so I think we just have to keep at it and keep working at it and find the creative solutions to fund it, because I do believe it should be a function of government. I think when we leave these things entirely up to the private sector and the free market, the wealthy win, and the lower and middle income people are left behind.
Thank you. Yolanda Ferris, please.
Yes, thank you. I agree, Paul. Affordable housing is something that is very important to me. Affordable housing in St. Louis Park is not affordable, not even for me. I work 2 full-time jobs. I'm a single mom. And I can't afford to live in St. Louis Park. And there are a lot of other people in the same boat as I am. I think that we need to get out, me as a council member, and talk to the constituents, see what their needs are. I think we need more affordable housing for larger families as well as smaller families. We need more affordable housing for single parents, male and female. And I think the affordable housing shouldn't be a 6-story building. I think it should be townhomes and, duplexes and things of that nature.
Thank you. Nadia Mohammed, please.
Thank you. So you asked for a definition, and I define affordable housing as any time a person is spending up to 30% of their income. That's the golden rule. And I'm telling you right now, as somebody who's tried to find affordable rental time and time again, even tried to buy a home in St. Louis Park, it is not affordable. We don't have it, but we're getting there, right? And one of the most effective tools we have in our pockets right now, and I've heard this table talk about this, is tax increment financing. Since we started offering tax increment financing, and with the help of our inclusionary housing policy, we were able to add more than 12,000 affordable units. Since I've gotten on, I know definitely it's been 2,000 affordable units, right? And that's in the private sector. Before that, we were not able to control that. And we get to be in control of when developers come to us, we get to be in control because of tax increment financing. We get to put our mouth or our money where our mouth is, whether it's climate action, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's the priorities and strategies that are important to our cities. And that's how I want to do it. And obviously, it won't be just rental of options. It will also be home ownership, keeping that affordable as well. So thank you.
Thank you. And Dale Anderson, please.
As I said before, affordable housing is certainly an important issue, but we're not in this alone. And we are facing a tsunami of forces that are beyond our control, and we don't have the tools to deal with it. We can apply some tools, we have applied some tools, but they're really just Band-Aids. They're going to serve our problems only temporarily. Tax increment financing is a transfer of wealth from taxpayers to wealthy developers. That doesn't really fix the problem. We have to find other means, and maybe St. Louis Park is just not a place that everybody can live. I mean, we only have so many square miles of territory, and we're almost all built out. We could build up, but a lot of people don't want to keep going up to satisfy our housing needs. I don't have an answer for this problem.
Thank you. And the pattern changes on my random numbers. Paul Bodwin, you are first for this question. On communications, what suggestions do you have, if any, to improve communications between the city and its residents?
Yeah, this is a big issue. It's a tough issue, and I'll tell you, as somebody who's been a pastor for a long time, this has been a frustrating issue for me, and especially as the means of communication they just continue to change all the time. We've got to do the really hard work of changing with those means and modes of communication, while at the same time understanding that we also have a lot of people in our community that are still using landlines, and they're still expecting things in the mail, and aren't going to check email, and aren't going to be on Facebook and those kinds of things. I think as a city council member, one of the things we got to do when we're running a campaign is knock on doors, and then we stop when we get elected. And I'm not saying I want to go out and knock on your door all the time. I actually don't enjoy knocking on doors. But what I mean by that is we have to get proactive about finding multiple ways to get out there and then really hear what people are saying, and finding other creative means to get information out to our citizens. I do think we could use our social media outlets better. I would like to really take a good look at that. I really do. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. As a member of the Human Rights Commission, I know it's been kind of hard to get things communicated out that we're doing. So I'd like us to take a good hard look at our communications, maybe do some kind of communications audit, and find the best, most efficient means of communicating to our citizens and getting feedback from them.
Thank you. Yolanda Ferris, please.
So this is definitely an important issue to me as well. Since I've been on council, there have been a lot of things that I've learned, a lot of programs that I've learned about that I didn't know prior to being a council member. I'm always on social media, but sometimes you miss things. So I think it's important, us as council members, to get out and communicate with the constituents more and to make sure that they know what's available in the city to them or what's going on in the city. Inviting them to more meetings here at the city hall, and just community, and then going out in the community and meeting with people that can't get here.
Thank you. Moshe Goldberger, please.
Thank you for the question. I think it's another very important point that the council really works for the residents, not the other way around. The council doesn't tell the people what to do, how to do. We take direction from them. We work for them. So it's really very, very important. I think, bottom line, if someone comes before the city council or contacts a council member, I think they have to know that they'll be taken seriously and that they will receive a thoughtful response. I think that's really what it boils down to.
Thank you. Dale Anderson.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Sure. What suggestions do you have, if any, to improve communications between the city and its residents?
I have to tell you that one of the most satisfying experiences I've had is knocking on people's doors. When I knock on the doors and people answer the door, and I tell them that I'm running for mayor, their faces light up with delight. It's fun. It's satisfying. It's rewarding. And then we talk a little bit about this or that, and then I move on. I feel that I have connected with that customer, that voter, and I think that that voter might feel that they have connected with me. I don't think anything is better than direct connection with an elected official and a voter. And I don't think, I think there's a lot of people that have a lack of confidence in their government when that connection is not made. I think that's important to try and find a way to connect with voters and have them connect back with their government.
Thank you. J.W. Starrett, please.
I don't know, I hate to be in the minority if this is the concern, but I actually think our city does a really good job of communicating things. You want to know what day your street cleaning is? Do you want to know the hydrant heroes in your neighborhood? I'm Yellowstone National Park, by the way. And I think they do a great job, but the question that I think really emanates from, are people engaged? And are they proactively coming, and are we able to connect and make sure that they know what resources are available to them? Because there's a lot of resources available from the city, much better than other neighboring cities, much better than what I experienced in Los Angeles. Even though one of the first conversations I ever had when I moved here was having a conversation when she was running for the first time, Cheryl Joachim. And I said, when I was there, the way that they handled voting was so much better than anywhere else I've ever lived. And the way that they engaged, the way they got information out, the way that there was booklets that helped all these candidate statements be there, explained it very, very well. And those would be things that I'd like to see change. So for me, it comes down to engagement. And I feel like if we work on the strengths that we have, and if we have a body that's here as city council to help be an amplifier for that, we can go out and make sure that our community, which I do feel is quite engaged, even be more engaged, build that sense of community, trust, bada bing, bada boom, good stuff.
Thank you. Nadia Mohammed, please.
Yeah. So this is why we hire experienced and professional staff to help and support us with this, right? And I might be a little biased, but we do have the best here in St. Louis Park. And it's been a joy to see them in collaboration with council members, with the mayor, with the other departments to make sure that communication is getting out to members, to residents, right? That we are transparent, that we are clear, and that we are honest. And, you know, as early as this afternoon, I actually got a call from a constituent who was having a really tough time with a landlord, right? And didn't knows their rights, but doesn't exactly know how to communicate with this, right? And what to do with that, right? And my first call was to city staff, letting them know of the situation and supporting that line of communication and the advocacy work as well is one thing that they've been really good with. But I would say it's about relying on the staff that we have, the professional, experienced staff that we have to get this work done.
Thank you. Timers, I think I can sneak in one more question if we just allow the candidates 1 minute, please, to answer. Thank you. So this will be our final question before your closing statement, and we're going to give you 1 minute only. Let's see. Nadia Mohammed, you're first to answer this one. And it's, what are your top 3 priorities over the next 4 years?
Yeah. My top priorities right now is, like I said, we've gotten a lot of rental options here in this city, thanks to things like tax increment financing, thanks to us recognizing our priorities and strategizing with that. I will say I want to expand on that. I want to expand on these policies and get more affordable home ownership in the city to create real wealth creation. I also want to work with our police department to ensure that that public safety is a priority here, right? And that they were equipped and trained and they have what they need to serve all of our community members. Seeing how I have 15 seconds left, those are my 2 big ones. You can always come and ask me more about my stance on a lot of other topics, but thank you.
Thank you. J.W. Sterrett, please.
For me, and they're not ordered ranked, but I will give you as much as I can within the time allotted. Public safety is definitely very key. I want to make sure that our forces from the fire department, police department, and the other services that we offer are given the resources that they needed, and seeing that they don't question our priority for them. Next up, I think we're going to go through a lot of tremendous change as a city in the next 10 years. From housing development to business development to light rail coming in finally. And those changes are going to present a whole swing of challenges for us, from parking to traffic. And for me, I want to make sure that there's a very open, very clear, authentic voice that's on City Council to make sure that those voices from the citizens are heard and that we can reflect their thoughts in our process and make smart decisions. Next up, I would say, is along the process of DEI, diversity, inclusion, and equity. For me, want to be very strong in the processes that we do, from maybe a little tweaks to our election process, tweaks to other parts of our city services. Thank you.
Thank you. Dale Anderson, please.
I think our most important issue is public safety. We need to service our fire and police people. We need to, secondly, we need to make sure that our infrastructure is up to date and we can anticipate problems and have the funds to resource to cure those problems when they spring on us. And I want to make sure that we don't forget who pays for all these services. It's the taxpayers. We have to remember we are in service to our taxpayers.
Thank you. Moshe Goldberger.
If I get elected and 4 years from now I leave and taxes are lower and crime is down and infrastructure is great, people have what they need, that's a success for me.
Thank you. Yolanda Ferris.
So I got about 6, but you said 3, right?
You get a minute.
Okay, so connecting our communities. That's the most important thing to me. Affordable housing, public safety for sure.
Okay, thank you. Paul Bodwin.
One of my top is similar to Nadia Mohammed in affordable housing, and in particular finding ways to increase home ownership for lower and middle income people, because as we know, home ownership is the pathway out of poverty, out of generational poverty. So that's a big one for me. Our REI work is very important because it really does spread across everything. One thing that didn't come up tonight that is included in race, equity, and inclusion, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, is also the protection of our LGBTQ community, and particularly our trans folks, around whom there's a lot of misunderstanding in our world today, and there's even some just outright attacks happening in certain communities. I'm proud that St. Louis Park is one where our LGBTQ community is mostly safe and feels celebrated, but that's something we have to work to protect. And this work also connects people, and we need more connection. The other one that's very important to me is our climate action plan, because this also has matters of equity and poverty and things like that all connect into this. So we need to keep at it with our climate action plan.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to our closing statements, and you'll get 1 minute each, up to 1 minute, and we begin with J.W. Starrett, please.
Oh, well, thank you to the League of Women Voters. Thank you to everyone attending tonight. Thank you for all those who are watching at home. And I really appreciate you being engaged with your community, and for those who are running to be leaders for you. I think there's a great group of people up here. There's been a great group of people who've been in this room for you before. And, you know, what I would like to bring is a little bit more accountability, a little bit more responsibility, and a little bit more common sense to the issues that face us as we grow. If you'd like to learn more about me, more than welcome to chat with you at any point. Please reach out. And for me, I'd like to just close with a little bit about my experience I didn't get a chance to speak about this evening. So since I've moved here, I've been in the Elmwood neighborhood and the Wolf Park neighborhood prior to that, and I've been on the neighborhood association. It's a great opportunity to be out there, and some of these issues that we talked about tonight, if it wasn't for that organization and the grants that we've applied for in the past and been able to host events to get community together, I definitely wouldn't feel such a strong commitment to try to make it to the next
Thank you.
level for you guys.
Moshe Goldberger.
I think most of you know where I stand on most of the issues. Sorry. There was one thing that I didn't mention, so I'll just mention it now briefly. Just the idea of transparency at the local government level. I don't have any experience doing this. I don't know much about how cities work, and I started looking into things. I started meetings. I met with the city manager and some of the department heads, and it's just so difficult to figure out what on earth we're spending the money on, what we're really up to. There's a lot of big fancy words, and what does that mean, and what does that mean? And so I think it's really important. Transparency is very important. People things should be clear what we're doing here as a city, what we're doing for you, how your tax dollars are being spent. Other than that, thank you for coming out, and thank you.
Thank you. Paul Bodwin.
Well, as I said at the beginning, I'm running for city council because I love this city and I want to serve it however I can. I've served it as a pastor for the last 8 years, and now I feel called to serve it as a city council member. I've been subbing in the high school for the last couple of weeks, and I'll tell you, that has just made me fall in love with this city even more. I love our diversity. I love the work that we're doing as a city, and I want to move it forward. If you elect me as your at-large B candidate, what you will get is a deep thinker who will listen to you deeply and will bring your voice to the table. I am all about getting all good ideas onto the table and thinking through them and finding the best ones and moving forward. So I just hope that as we move forward here, that again you can make me your first choice for in your vote on or before November 7th for the at-large B council seat.
Thank you. Yolanda Ferris, please.
Thank you, Women League of Voters. I'm just excited to continue to learn about the city, how it's ran, the needs and wants of the people, the council members, the staff, the police, the children. I want to communicate with everybody. I want everybody to enjoy living in St. Louis Park.
Thank you. Nadia Mohammed, please.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's been amazing to see how engaged all of you are in this process. So I'm thankful to be here. It's actually been great to hear from my colleagues here as well, and think about and deeply reflect about what are some things that are important to our community and whatnot. I actually want to pause at this moment and thank Mayor Jake Spano, who's here in the room with us, for his 12 years of dedication. Thank you. 8 of those years being as mayor, and it's been awesome and amazing to watch him do his thing for the past 8 years and 4 years in up close and personal. His guidance has been amazing to have, and I'm actually even more happier to receive his endorsement, along with many others here in the community. I am thankful. I am counting on your vote this upcoming November, and you can actually vote as early as tomorrow here if you're so feeling inspired to do so. And my team also has yard signs, so please ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Dale Anderson, please.
I want to thank the audience here and the audience watching us at home or online. I believe that my years of banking experience and decision-making have prepared me to effectively govern a city like St. Louis Park. I've had some tough decisions. I've worked with some tough developers and tough circumstances. I've led a large group of bankers, and I think that St. Louis Park needs me and my skills, and I need the votes from you and from our residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thank you so much to our 6 candidates here. I would like to remind our audience that the views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, not those of the League of Women Voters. Sponsorship of the forum is not an endorsement of any candidate by the League of Women Voters. And now, Deb Brinkman, who's the president of League of Women Voters of St. Louis Park, will provide some closing remarks.
The League of Women Voters St. Louis Park would like to thank all of you for coming tonight, and again to our online audience. We would like to thank the City of St. Louis Park for the use of this council chambers and for taping the candidate forum for us. We especially want to thank our candidates for taking part in the democratic process and for running for office and for being willing to serve our community. It's so important to give voters a choice. The League researches and advocates for issues important to our members and to the health of our communities. If you're interested in finding out more about what we do and how we do it, and how you can make a difference, join us. Membership is open to anyone who is age 16 or older. You can find out more information about the candidates by visiting them, their websites, reading the information published in the Sun Sailor, checking Vote 411. And again, thank you for coming. Remember, the general election is November 7, and you'll have an opportunity to vote early. Thanks, and this concludes our program.